Right now at 5:30, a special report for you. A WHS 11 News Focus investigation that's been 4 months in reporting. Did the Louisville jail miss an opportunity to catch illegal drugs that one inmate appeared to have swallowed before booking?
We uncovered a body scan x-ray that appears to show something unusual in Richard Graham. Travis Bree shows you the evidence and talks to Metro Corrections Director Jerry Collins.
To let you all know that we love Richard and he is somebody to us.
May 19th was the 1-year death anniversary of Richard Graham.
Justice for Richard! With Richard's drug addiction, if you looked at my son, you would have never knew unless I told you.
His mom, Monica Graham, says her son was arrested multiple times. When he got arrested last May, she hoped this is the time he would learn his lesson.
As a parent, I felt that he was safe.
Police arrested Richard May 18, 2024, for violating his home incarceration conditions. The Jail Professional Standards Unit investigation, or PSU, says he had a gun, cocaine, and heroin on him while on home incarceration. His booking process at Louisville Metro Corrections started at 9:20 a.m. Officer Anthony Hamblin gave Richard a pat-down search and a body scan. Here's a picture of that body scan as it appears in the PSU investigation. Graham was also strip searched since he came in on a drug offense. Nowhere in the report does it raise any red flags about these initial searches. The report says, quote, "After being searched and body scanned, inmate Graham went through the rest of the booking process. He was cleared for general population before 10:30 a.m.
There is a very clear item that I could detect in the body scan.
Leonard Vare is a prison and jail expert based in Texas. He has 26 years experience working in correctional facilities. Vare pointed to this white triangular shape in Graham's stomach as something that should have warranted further examination.
That stood out because it had an unusual density, it had an unusual shape that is not consistent with what I would normally consider, food that's in someone's stomach.
Is that something that should have been blatantly obvious to the officer?
What it gives me is probable cause. I may not be able to definitively say that that appears to be a bag filled with heroin or methamphetamine, but I can say that definitively it looks like contraband.
According to the report, Graham was moved to an unspecified dorm with other inmates. At 1:56 p.m., several inmates gather around him and nod their heads up and down. At 4:58, he reaches into the inside of the back of his jail jumpsuit. At 7:37, Graham and another inmate begin snorting something together. We also received this security camera video from a source inside the jail who asked not to be identified. It shows Graham put something in his mouth or nose and walk away from his bunk around 8:10 p.m. That corresponds to 2 redacted images in the report that say he ingested an unknown substance at 8:08 and 8:09.
My question is to the jail, if y'all seen that on video, why wasn't it addressed? Why he's walking?
The report says an officer entered the dorm 40 minutes later at 8:49, and 3 inmates stood between the officer and Graham, deliberately obstructing that officer's view. At 11:14 p.m., another officer entered the dorm as part of a required cell check and counted the bodies, the number of inmates, in the dorm. Graham started showing signs of distress like rocking back and forth or shaking around 8:20 p.m. Over the next several hours, Richard mostly lays in his top bunk. At 3:30 a.m., the other inmates become so concerned that they pull the Narcan alarm box. At that point, over a dozen officers and nurses flood the cell. The autopsy said Graham died from an overdose of fentanyl, MDMA, and other drugs. He was declared dead at 4:10 a.m., about 18 hours after he entered the jail. I asked Jail Director Jerry Collins how he thinks Richard accessed the drugs. Is it possible for someone to organize a transaction to themselves in that short of amount of time?
No, where he was what we call rear security. Like you said, he's been here a day. He wasn't even classified and moved up. So more than likely, and again, there's pending litigation, more than likely he got that in and took it.
Is it part of the PSU investigation to find specifically where the drugs they took, how did they get in?
Yes, and we have a ability, and again, I won't go into the details. We're able to look at cameras and multitude of other ways to see, and generally they can find out very quickly how it got in or where it came from.
The answer could be in the many redacted pages of the report. 10 officers or nurses were interviewed as part of the report. All of them were either called to the dorm after the Narcan box was pulled, or they did a cell check once Richard was in there. Officer Anthony Hamblin, who did the body scan, was not interviewed. Instead, his resignation letter is attached. It's dated June 3rd and effective June 22nd, 1 month after Richard died. Hamblin wrote he is transferring to Louisville Metro Police. The jail would not comment on Officer Hamblin's resignation or his role in the investigation due to potential pending litigation. Metro Police confirmed Hamblin is still one of their officers, but would not comment on the LMDC investigation. Officers Esther and White were reprimanded for not doing proper cell checks in Richard's dorm. They did not scan his wristband, as policy requires. Officer Esther also did not check for flesh and breathing movements, as policy requires.
If you did all of that and you did your job, then, I'm not saying Richard would still be here, but there is a thought in my mind, if they would have checked on him, maybe they could have saved his life.
Monica has contacted attorney John Little from Indianapolis about Richard's death. Little says even if Richard brought the drugs in, the jail was still responsible for him.
So they can argue that Richard's bringing the drugs into jail is somehow a mitigator of their responsibility, but at the end of the day, they have the absolute legal duty to ensure his safety.
While Richard's death is the only thing on this family's mind, Director Collins has decreased the number of in-custody deaths since he started in March 2022. In 2022, there were 9 in-custody deaths. That dropped to 3 in both 2023 and 24. There have been 3 deaths this year with 6 months to go.
What we did do was invest a lot of money in changing, making the jail more suicide resistant.
That includes removing or covering all the bars in the jail. They also started full dress outs in spring 2023, where inmates get a jail jumpsuit the instant they get into jail instead of after booking photos.
What we were seeing is they were sewing fentanyl on their clothes, they were tearing their shoes apart and gluing it in.
Also doing away with paper mail.
Family members would give lawyers paperwork and they would hand it off to them in the courtroom out of our custody and then come back into jail with that.
And you could like huff the paperwork and get high?
No, it was soaked, so you'd just eat it any way, and then you could overdose from that.
Another open records request revealed that out of 522 reported contraband incidents since April 2022, only 119, or 23%, were in actual cells, inmate common areas, or dorms. The other 77% were during the booking process or on home incarceration. Will you give him any credit for that?
It's hard to give somebody credit when my son is dead.
As a grieving mother, Monica's view of jail improvements could only go so far. She hopes the scrutiny will continue on LMDC, like it was when former FBI agent David Byer released his 400-page report in 2023.
I do not want any family to suffer and feel the pain that I feel right now.
Do you feel like you're on the right path right now?
I do, and it's gonna, it's never an easy path, Travis. It's a tough path. It's a tough job. However, yes, we try to get a little bit better every day.
She prays no more moms will have to dissect their son's death like she has.
So Travis is here now to answer a few questions from us. And one thing we were wondering is we've heard about the litigation that's going on, but did they admit that they missed something in Graham's body scan?
So there's no official lawsuit at this point.
Okay.
It could be happening, but there's no official lawsuit. And no, they've not admitted anything about the body scan because there's a picture of the body scan in the official jail report, and there's really no discussion about it. There's a bunch of redacted pages, and the jail declined to answer my follow-up questions over email about the body scan, so I was just left with what's in the report.
Well, really powerful investigation. Never seen the anatomy of an actual drug overdose, bit by bit, almost a timeline of it happening. But has Collins taken any other measures, Travis, to reduce the deaths of inmates there?
He's taken a lot, and we could only fit so many into the story, but he was telling me that they have an infirmary in the jail for the first time. They added that in the last 3 years. He added a canine unit. He added an intelligence unit where officers specifically try to answer questions like this. Also adding a mental health professional as part of the inmate check-in process for mental health issues. So he's done a lot of things for sure.
All right, but soaking paperwork and fentanyl, amazing.
Says it happened.
Unbelievable information. All right, thank you, Travis.